170 lakh tons of solid waste every year. Recently, the Supreme Court made a worrying observation that we are sitting on a plastic time bomb. With increasing urbanization and rising levels of consumption, our piles of waste are only going to grow higher and higher in the years to come. So managing waste in a sustainable and eco-friendly manner is the need of the hour. Is our government equipped enough to do so? How can India Inc. play a role here? And what can you and me as citizens of the country do to pitch in? To discuss all of these aspects and more, I'm joined by a very eminent panel at our ET Now studio today. Starting from my right, Dr. R.K. Pachauri, Director General of the Energy and Resources Institute. Right next to him, Shabana Azmi, actor and social activist. On my left, Mr. Kandarp Singh, Managing Director, South Asia Markets, Tetra Pak India. And Mr. Tushar Shah, Director, Daman Ganga Group. The scale of the problem is huge. Dr. Pachauri, I'd like you to set the tone for this discussion by first telling us what kind of an environment and health disaster are we heading to?
Well, it's a very serious situation that we are facing, because a lot of this waste is also the breeding ground for all kinds of disease. And what's worse is it's also taking away a large part of valuable space. So much so that even in the case of our water bodies, you have a lot of wetlands surrounding our cities. Much of this waste is being dumped in those. Now, those water bodies or those wetlands provide a whole range of ecosystem services, including drinking water supply for a large number of people. So we're really creating conditions by which people's health is going to be affected adversely. And if you look at the scenario ahead, unless we manage this problem, you're really going to get a large part of this country in the form of just mountains of waste.
Kandarp Singh, we have some policies in place. Do you think it's just an enforcement problem, or do our policies lack vision?
Of course, policy legislation enforcement is very important, and the lack of enforcement even creates more havoc in the system. But I fundamentally believe it starts from the mindset. You know, when we talk about waste management, I was saying to someone the other day, when we talk about waste, it's clutter, not only in landfills, it's clutter in our minds. It's how we start with removing that clutter in our minds, you know, and to me, that's the fundamental source, because that's got to shift. And that's why we believe very clearly that you've got to start with changing the mindset of every individual, every citizen of this country.
So change of mindsets is one thing. Shabana, what about empowerment of the municipal authorities themselves? Do you think they are empowered enough in terms of infrastructure, in terms of manpower to deal with the whole scale of this problem?
You see, I find it quite amazing that the Municipal Corporation of Mumbai really is the richest body. And yet, when I was working as an MP and trying to clean up the Juhu beach, which was 4 kilometers of a stretch of beach, and cleaning it up, all our appeals fell on deaf ears, because they said they didn't have the resources to clean it up, and ultimately we had to hire private contractors to do it. So obviously there's an anomaly somewhere there. Unless we empower our municipal authorities to have the resources and go out and actually do the work that they need to do, then it's going to just go around in circles.
Tushar, as a recycler, you'd probably be able to throw more light on this. We are running out of landfill space across the country. Should we be thinking of some new age solutions here instead of just dumping waste onto landfills?
Absolutely. I think that the main reason of having this garbage as garbage and into the landfill space is because of lack of awareness and lack of willingness to do something nice. I think it's very simple, really, if you want to take all this waste out from the landfill and into recycling. It's just very simple. It's just segregating at source wet waste and dry waste, and that actually is 90% of the solution to all our waste problems.
What's the level of segregation that we have currently in our municipal
I think it's less than 10%, less than 10%. I don't even think it can reach 10% in cities where more people are aware.
Dr. Pachauri, is that just a lack of political will?
You know, I really think we have to look at the system as a whole. I mean, the point that's been made about segregation, people are not going to segregate waste if they don't know what it's going to lead to in terms of benefits, and who's going to sort of get rid of it once you've collected it, then it's sort of aggregated somewhere. Where is it going to go? And I think you also need to create awareness. We as a society are totally oblivious to the kind of harmful impact we're imposing on the rest of society. And I think that's the mindset that has to be changed. I mean, we really have not just a cluttered mind, but a very selfishly cluttered mind.
I mean, there is lack of awareness as well. So it's insensitivity to the environment, not understanding the dangers of what kind of time bomb that we are allowing ourselves to live on, and there is complete lack of awareness.
Right,
that,
for
I think,
instance,
is very
plastic
important.
was banned in a number of states, including Delhi, since 2009. Delhi alone generates about 800 metric tons of plastic every day. We have the legislation in place, we have authorities to enforce it, and yet we have numbers like these.
Well, it's a compounding of problems. I must say a large number of citizens in Delhi probably don't see the benefit of banning plastic, and they're also vested interests. Let's not forget that. There are people who are making money out of selling plastic bags or whatever, and they will disrupt the process in every possible way.
Do you think India Inc. should be moving towards more recyclable and renewable packaging solutions?
Absolutely. I think, and you know, in a way, I think a lot of India Inc. is doing that. I mean, I think we are working, I see a lot of organizations besides ourselves who are working through our R&D efforts to look at, you know, biodegradable material, you know, looking at, you know, biopolymers, for instance, as part of the, you know, you put plastic caps on our packages that could be made of biopolymers. So I think there is a clear drive towards that. But I'm not sure that alone is going to solve the issue. I think the fundament, I think for me, one of the very important elements is you've got to create an ecosystem. You know, I think it's got to have every one of them working in tandem. And you know, we talk about burning platform. I think we need to your point, Dr. Pachauri, we need to think that there is a burning platform. We need to create one probably in some way, because I don't believe that an average citizen understands the enormity of the problem. It's still seen as a very esoteric view. Recent consumer research we did showed us something very interesting. Consumers are becoming aware, but they are saying, you know, don't inconvenience us. It has to be something that's convenient, and it has to be, you know, less costly or cost effective.
But is that a fact, or is that a myth that recycled goods actually cost more?
Of course, you know, because of the scale of production of recycled products, some products tend to cost more, but really recycling actually reduces the overall cost of everything from energy to labor and everything at all. Especially paper, you know, we've seen that recycled paper is much cheaper than virgin paper. Plastics, for example, recycled plastics are actually much cheaper than virgin plastics for sure.
But also what I find interesting is recycling is inherent to the Indian psyche. Absolutely. You know, we do it and we used to do it. This whole thing now, Katha, you know, the Katha embroidery, which has now become such a fashion statement, started from very frugal women wanting to save every piece of thread that they did. So they used to take little patchwork, and even the thread they used to make themselves, and then make these beautiful quilts. Where it has changed suddenly is where we need to investigate. Why is it that a society that was intrinsically geared to recycling has suddenly now become so careless towards it?
If I could just add to that, it's really interesting. In fact, someone said recently that you would find a much stronger mindset on recycling in rural India, you know, because there nothing is wasted. Everything comes back. Somehow you find ways, you know, not using technology, but it's just the fact that you reuse it, right? That's not happening in the urban.
That's a very interesting point. We'll take a break at this point, but here's a thought for you. A plastic bag that gets manufactured today is probably still going to be around in the year 2513. So maybe that should make you switch to a more green and eco-friendly option. On the other side of the break, we'll talk about citizens' awareness and what you and I as citizens of India can do to contribute to waste management. Keep watching ET Now.
Brought to you by Tetra Pak and Terry.
Welcome back to Managing Waste, today's imperative, a special discussion on ET Now. Perhaps the most crucial role in creating waste is played by consumers, both individual as well as industrial. Yet we as citizens often shy away from basic responsibilities like adopting the 3 R's: reduce, recycle and reuse. Shabana, consumer awareness is a huge problem in this country. How do we mobilize the masses to sort of imbibe this whole culture of reusing and recycling products?
Well, I imagine that we should start with education and education of school children, because I know what I took from school. I don't remember anything about the history, geography lessons that were taught to me, but I never ever throw anything on the road. And I wait and I hold it in my hand. I'm very fond of eating bhel puri, for instance, from the road, but I continue to carry that piece of paper till I reach home and I actually put it. And a lot of my friends laugh at it and I say, no, this is something that you need to do. So, and I think it would help tremendously if celebrities themselves became aware and then use that message to tell people that you are doing, if you don't pay attention, you're doing it at your own peril. I think that's extremely important.
Dr. Pachauri, as a society, do you think we even care enough about the environment?
No, we certainly don't, because what's really happened is we've followed certain standards of consumerism which have come from the West, but we've completely ignored the other part of what the West has done over the last 50 years. Let's face it, in the developed countries, they've brought about a radical change in the way they manage their environment. I mean, I know for a fact that 30 or 40 years ago, a large part of the developed world was terribly polluted. Their rivers were polluted. They also had a lot of problems with air quality. But starting with someone like Rachel Carson, who wrote that book called Silent Spring, a major movement has started, as a result of which the environment over there is so much cleaner. People are so deeply involved. We have just not done that. And
India Inc. has been playing a role in that respect. Tetra Pak, for instance, has this very interesting concept called Your Carton, My Classroom. Can you tell us what's the idea behind that?
I think one of the factors we saw that would propel us to or galvanize action is also seeing the value, seeing what is actually happening. And we said earlier that what actually happens to the recycled stuff, right? Do I actually see the value? And what we found, for instance, from our cartons is that you can get quite some value, not just by making notebooks and recycled paper, but even from the polyethylene aluminum, you can convert them into school furniture, and desks and chairs, which are very robust furniture that can go into schools. And the idea was that let's do this to go back to the underprivileged schools, and that's what we started in Bangalore last year. We had a very strong success there in partnership with Terry. We had about 500 school children, and you can see the hunger. You can see that they get it, right? But then it's the teachers. It's not about prescription and CBSE. It's actually taking them and showing them what happens in a landfill. I think we've got to make it more practical, as you said, Dr. Pachauri, but it must be in the curriculum. How it's managed is how it's executed is a different way, but it must form the very basis of what we're trying to teach.
Tushar, you've tied up as the recycling partner for Tetra Pak to recycle all these cartons. What sort of products do you make, and do you find a market for these products?
We make a lot of products, including paper and roofing sheets and flat sheets, which are a replacement for plywood, and a lot of such products. The market is huge. If you see the quality of the products which we make, the roofing sheets are, and the market for India is really good. We are located in Gujarat, and you see it's really booming there. There's a lot of industrialization, and of course the markets in the rural India is also very, very big for such products.
Is there a way you want citizens to be involved in this initiative?
I think yes, because the problem is, in India we have inherent huge capacities for recycling, but we're not